Hello, and welcome to Sharp Love Story. Here we share powerful stories of love and the emotional journeys that lead to healing. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Let's explore the beauty and strength of human emotions together. The day I returned from my prenatal checkup, my husband subconsciously pressed the elevator button for the upper floor. I thought he had pressed the wrong button because there was only a single girl living upstairs. Later, the girl came downstairs with a bowl of chicken soup, saying it was to foster neighborhood relations. Sister, when is your due date? I'm trying to conceive too. I'm so nervous. The doctor said that the baby is so big, he needs his dad to accompany you more. Why doesn't your brother-in-law accompany you? My husband brought me chicken soup when he came back. I can't finish it alone, so I brought it down to drink with my sister. The girl talked nonstop. On a whim, I glanced at the thermos. The thermos was exactly the same as the one I bought for my husband to take to work. There was also a little sun that I had drawn on it. 1. When my husband came back yesterday, he said his mentor was sick and hospitalized, and asked me to cook a nourishing soup. I got up at dawn and processed the native chicken that my mother brought me to nourish my body. Then I carefully cooked a pot of thick soup. But today the soup that John took out appeared in the hands of a strange girl. The girl held the thermos and walked towards me step by step. Sister, come and try it. This soup was made by my family's nanny. My husband said that the nanny at home came from in city, and she's just so-so. But her biggest advantage is that she cooks soup well. Without waiting for my answer, the girl placed the thermos on the dining table on her own. She acted so casually and freely, as if she had been to this house countless times. The girl scooped up a small portion and brought it to me. The rich and familiar aroma of chicken soup filled my nose. I looked down and saw several herbs settling in the soup. It was exactly the same as the soup recipe I usually used. My hands clenched instantly. Last month, John accompanied me back from my prenatal checkup and walked into the elevator of our building. He put one arm around my waist and pressed the number 13 upstairs with the other hand very naturally. I laughed at him at the time. You can even press the wrong floor in your own home. John was stunned for a moment. Then he changed it to 12 smoothly and begged for mercy with a wry smile. I've been running between the company and the lab recently, and my eyes are blurred at that time. Where did I have the heart? I was full of heartache for him. Not long after returning home, he received a call and apologized to me helplessly. Wife, there's something wrong with the company project. I have to go back to work overtime. My memories became clearer and clearer at this moment. I even remembered when he stood on the balcony and answered the phone. He inadvertently showed an ambiguous smile. I was completely confused. Did John really go to the company that day? Sister, sorry. I felt a hot pain in my stomach belatedly. Looking down, the girl had spilled the chicken soup on my stomach. Sister, I'm sorry, the bowl is too hot. I can't hold it, I'll pay you, okay? The girl's slightly raised cat eyes revealed a hint of provocation and pride. And she took out her phone to send a voice message. Husband, I've made a mess. I've soiled other people's clothes. What should I do? Soon I heard her deliberately loud voice message. Princess, it's just a piece of clothing. Your knight can afford it. The man who held me in his arms and called me darling last night. At this moment, he was gently coaxing another woman with an infinitely gentle voice, calling her princess. I was like a frog tied up. The surgical knife hanging in the air finally fell, cutting me in half, bleeding profusely. The girl shook her head and smiled. Sister, my husband transferred the money to me. Oh, how much is your clothes? I'll pay you back. The baby in my belly kicked me excitedly, and my belly bulged at one corner. I held my stomach and pointed expressionlessly at the door. I don't welcome you. Don't send you off. The girl shrugged, uninterestingly. Okay, but sister, your clothes are old too. Clothes that shouldn't be worn should be thrown away. Otherwise, it's so embarrassing. People are the same. 2. I sat on the couch for a long time. I found the top number in my contacts list label husband. I dialed, my hand trembling. I called 10 times in a row, but there was no answer. Yet the girl could get a reply immediately after sending a casual voice message. I smiled bitterly, my eyes getting more and more sore. Holding my belly, I slowly stood up. I intended to verify something. 5 minutes later, I was standing in the dark stairwell on the 13th floor. My phone was flashing in the darkness. The call I made to John half an hour ago. Finally, there was a reply. He replied to me with 2 WeChat messages. Honey, I was in a meeting just now and didn't answer the phone. What's wrong? Honey, I have to work overtime today. I'll be back later. I stared at it, and the slight sound of the elevator door opening came to my ears. I held my breath and looked through the gap on the 13th floor. The man who told me on WeChat that he had to work overtime was standing only 3 meters away from me, making a phone call. His face was full of excitement, impatience, and agitation. I'm home. Are you ready? A young girl in cool clothes opened the door. She threw herself into John's arms and acted coquettishly. Husband, you're so fast today. John reached out impatiently and grabbed the girl hard. Of course I have to be quick to come back quickly and see this. John lowered his head and kissed the girl. I covered my mouth tightly, trying to suppress the urge to vomit. This was the first time I had seen John look so disgusting. What kind of gentle and refined? What kind of gentle and elegant? He was nothing but a lecherous glutton. 3. It was 11 o'clock at night. John opened the door slowly, seeing the bright lights in the room. He was stunned for a moment. I was sitting on the sofa, looking at him calmly. John reacted quickly, walked over hurriedly, and squatted in front of me. He kissed my belly and said softly, Honey, why are you still up so late? Is the baby being naughty? I nodded lightly. My gaze swept across his messy collar. Reaching out, I pinched a curly blonde hair on his shoulder. I pretended to be puzzled. John, what's this? John looked at the hair, but his expression didn't change. It's probably a colleague who accidentally brushed against it when I got out of the elevator today. I didn't say anything, just stared at him. John stood up abruptly. Sarah, you suspect me because of a hair? John looked as if he had been wronged. Seeing that I still didn't move, he suddenly hugged me and tears fell on my shoulder. Sarah, I work so hard, and you still suspect me. I felt the hot tears on my shoulder. Suddenly, I remembered the day I got pregnant. I rushed into his arms with the double red pregnancy test paper. John was crying with joy just like that. He pressed my head down, refusing to let me look up at his embarrassed appearance. At that time, I felt both funny and moved that I had found the right person. But now I realize it turns out that tears are also one of his acting methods. The last bit of hope I had vanished at this moment. 4. After that day, John came home on time every day, just like clockwork. He was as clingy to me as he was when we were newlyweds, but back then it was out of love. Now it was out of guilt and shame. I asked him, Don't you have to work? John made a sad face and played the victim. Work isn't important. Spending time with my wife and child is the most important thing. I smiled but said nothing. When he went to take a shower, I took his phone that was lying on the side. I had already checked John's main and secondary WeChat accounts. The first 2 times, I couldn't find anything suspicious. This time, I found a system clone hidden among hundreds of applications. There was only one WeChat app on the homepage of the other system. Entering the name Amy caught my eye. I clicked on the avatar. The screen full of vulgar language and naked pictures made me feel nauseous. Afraid that John would come out, I didn't have time to look carefully, and I quickly recorded the entire screen with my phone. Suddenly John's phone rang. It was a strange call from an unknown number. My intuition told me that this was the call I had guessed. Soon I heard the sound of the water stopping in the bathroom. John opened the door. His head was full of undried water droplets, and his pajamas were all wet. He didn't care and almost snatched the thing from my hand. What are you doing? The phone happened to hang up at this time. I lifted my eyelids lightly. Your clothes are all wet. What's the rush for just a phone call? John realized his abnormal reaction and smiled wryly. Honey, there's a lot of data on my phone and I've been busy with projects recently. I'm afraid you'll press the wrong thing. I glanced at him and casually said, You're right. You should call back quickly, in case your colleague has something urgent. John looked at me again and went to the balcony to make a call. Through the glass, I saw John's anxious expression. He came in and hurriedly said that there was a problem with the company project and he was about to leave with his coat. I called out to him, "I have a stomach ache. Can you ask for leave?" John frowned, his face full of impatience. "Isn't it enough that I've been with you for so long? Are you being so delicate just because you're pregnant?" He gave me a cold look and turned to leave. He probably didn't notice that he was still wearing slippers. The door slammed shut. I tightened my grip on my belly. I held back my tears, leaving only 2 red marks. I can't cry. Why should only I suffer, while John is carefree and happy? I sent a message to the lawyer I contacted a few days ago. Is this chat record enough as evidence of his cheating? The lawyer said it was, but it would be better to have substantial evidence. Under these circumstances, it is unlikely to make the other party leave the house empty-handed. I pursed my lips, recalling the day I discovered the 2 of them. I was so heartbroken that I didn't take a picture of that scene. Just as I was thinking of a way, there was a strange WeChat friend request in the background. I looked at the familiar avatar. The other party didn't say anything and sent 2 pictures first. One was a woman's skin with dense marks. The other was a man's clothes casually thrown on the ground. The battle situation was visible. My heart moved, and I saved the photos. I didn't reply. Messages from the other side kept coming. I can call him back with 1 phone call. "Sarah, you can't beat me. I'm younger than you," I replied. "You're in a hurry." Yes, Amy was in a hurry because John had been with me for so many days without going to see her. She finally couldn't hold it anymore. Thinking of what the lawyer said, I stimulated Amy once more. "I am John's wife, and the child I give birth to will be registered in his household register. And you can only be the unseen lover, and your child will be inferior to your child." The other side was visibly furious. "Sarah, you can only talk big now. John cares about me the most. I can call him once, and I can call him a second time. And even if I ask him to divorce you, it's no big deal." I replied with a no. Now, Amy was like a powder keg, and all kinds of swear words filled the screen. Finally, she said, "Dare you bet with me?" 5. That's exactly what I was waiting for. I focused and typed word by word. "Let's bet bigger. If you can get him to take you home for the night, I'll give you a chance to be the mistress of the house. I'll take the initiative to divorce and never bother you again." Amy happily agreed. I glanced at the hidden camera in the corner and silently lowered my eyelids the next day. I asked my friend Zoe to pick me up. Seeing my strange expression, she tentatively asked, "Did you and John have a fight? What's wrong with him? You're about to give birth, and he's still making you unhappy." I curled my lips. "He's keeping another woman on the side." Zoe's face changed instantly. "He's cheating during your pregnancy?" Before I could answer my friend, John called and asked, "Sarah, where have you been? You're pregnant. Why are you running around? Isn't it just that I couldn't accompany you last night? I'm busy making money to support you and the child. Can't you be more understanding?" I waited for him to finish before speaking slowly. "I bought a ticket to the beach. Can you come with me?" John didn't speak. His breathing suddenly became heavy, and soon the call hung up. I clicked on the surveillance footage. Amy was leaning in John's arms, sobbing. John carried Amy into the living room and took off all his clothes in no time. I was still laughing, crying and laughing. Zoe's face turned ugly, and she pressed her phone. "Sarah, don't look." The expression on my face gradually became painful and water flowed from under the chair legs. Sarah, you're going to give birth. Hold on, I'll take you to the hospital now." Zoe started the car in a hurry. John called again, his voice low and hoarse. "Go by yourself, wife. I can't leave work. Call me if anything happens." I forced myself to endure the pain and said, "John, I'm going to give birth." There was a moment of silence on the other end, and then the tone became impatient. "If I remember correctly, the due date is still more than 10 days away. What are you giving birth to? You have to have a limit when you're joking. That's it. Don't talk about anything else." There was no sound on the other end immediately. I opened my mouth and swallowed the words I wanted to say. "John, don't worry. We won't have a future anymore." 6. Zoe listened and cursed angrily.
That.
Sarah, don't worry. I'll get revenge for you later. You must hold on. It's not worth it for a man like him. I was in so much pain that I couldn't speak. I managed to send the surveillance video to the lawyer. You can prepare. I want to file for divorce and make him leave the house with nothing. Zoe paced anxiously outside the delivery room. She kept calling John, but he wouldn't answer. The delivery took 10 hours. During the process, the nurse rushed around with a serious expression, taking blood and using blood. She even asked her to sign a notice. Zoe's legs went weak. Fortunately, when dawn broke, she finally heard the baby's loud cry. Zoe covered her mouth and cried with joy. When I woke up again, I felt like I had been run over by a car. My friend, who was sitting beside me, was staring at her phone angrily, not knowing what she was looking at. I hissed, attracting her attention. My friend put down her phone and looked over. Her eyes instantly turned red. You're finally awake.
How are you?
Are you okay? The doctor said it was fortunate that you fainted after giving birth. Otherwise, you would have had to have a C-section. Your daughter is very cute. The nurse said, she looks like a beauty just like you. Sarah, does it hurt? I smiled at her. A little.
Thank you, Zoe.
My friend took good care of me.
Much better than
my cheating husband during pregnancy. Now that I had a successful delivery, I had also figured it out. I must take my child and separate from John.
Zoe was about to cry.
What are you thanking me for? We've been friends for so many years, and I'm your daughter's godmother.
Don't be so polite with me.
Having said that, she frowned and reminded me. Sarah, now that you have given birth, don't be confused. John is a rotten thing who cheated on his wife while she was giving birth. So don't bother with him. I won't get involved, but if you're still with him, we won't be friends anymore. You gave birth to such a big event, and he didn't even answer the phone. I really misread him before I picked up my phone and looked at the background. Apart from a few messages from the divorce lawyer and system-recommended news, there was nothing. John probably had a great time with Amy. He forgot that his wife was pregnant. I looked at my friend and said seriously, "Don't worry, I'm done with him." 7. After a few days of recovery in the hospital, the lawyer sent me the property division agreement. I asked Zoe to help me go home. Another month passed after I finished confinement. I didn't want to waste any more time. I couldn't stand being married to John anymore. To avoid any more trouble, Zoe called the students from her martial arts gym, both male and female, all strong and fit when they heard that they were going to catch a cheater. Their faces were full of excitement. The surveillance footage from the past few days showed John and Amy had been staying in this house all the time. As soon as the door opened, several students rushed in with their phones and to grab people. They pulled John and Amy off the bed. Amy hid behind John and screamed nonstop, "Husband! Husband! Who are they?"
John was also panicked.
He covered his vital parts and barely managed to stay calm. "Who are you? What are you doing in my house? Breaking and entering is illegal." "Wait, what are you filming? Give me your phone." John didn't care about protecting his privacy. He rushed forward to grab the phone that was being filmed. As a result, he was pushed hard to the ground and was completely defenseless. "John, it was me who asked them to come." Zoe supported me and walked into the crowd. John turned pale when he saw me.
"Sarah, how?
How did you come back?" "I can explain." I smiled and asked softly, "Explain what?" "Explain why this woman calls you husband? Explain why this woman is in our house? Explain why this woman is lying with you?" "Okay, if you want to explain, then say it now." John opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. He couldn't explain. John smiled bitterly. "Wife, I know you won't believe me no matter what I say now. Can we put on our clothes? Standing like this is not a thing." Seeing that the front door was not closed, the noise had already attracted many neighbors. Zoe had someone throw 2 pieces of underwear at them. Amy was dissatisfied. "Just this, how do I wear it? I want to wear clothes, I want to leave." Zoe pushed her to the ground. "The mistress who hooks up with a married man. You're lucky to have something to wear." Amy glared at me resentfully and immediately turned back to hug John.
"Husband, look at them."
John protected Amy behind him. Sarah, this is between you and me. Don't involve Amy. She is young. It's not her fault. Zoe couldn't stand it anymore and walked over and slapped John and Amy twice. John, what are you pretending to be a romantic? Your wife is 9 months pregnant and you're messing around at home with someone. Are you even human? I called out to Zoe to stop her from getting so excited. John looked at me with hope. I walked closer slowly and took out 2 documents. My tone unusually gentle. John, take a look at these 2 documents and sign them if you think there's no problem. Since things have come to this, there's no need for us to continue.
8.
Seeing the big words on the document, John's eyes widened, his face changed drastically, and he suddenly looked up at me. Do you want to divorce me? I nodded. You've cheated, and you cheated while I was pregnant. Should I forgive you and live a good life with you? John, I'm not that cheap. John shook his head desperately, refusing to divorce. He tried to pounce on me. I took a step back and unbuttoned my coat. John saw my deflated belly and was stunned. Where's the baby?
Zoe sneered.
It's rare that you still remember the child, John. You're really not a human being. Your wife stayed in the delivery room for 10 hours and almost couldn't come out while you were kissing and cuddling with your mistress at home. What are you pretending? I called you so many times. Why did you pretend not to see it? Weren't you just indifferent? And now you're asking about the child? If you have any conscience at all, you should take the initiative to leave the house empty-handed and give all the money to Sarah and the child. John knelt on the ground, constantly repenting and explaining. I thought you were joking. The due date was said to be more than 10 days away. I smiled slightly. Thanks to you, the baby came out early. Sign the agreement, or we'll go through the legal process. I don't care. After that day, John and Amy became famous in the neighborhood. Everyone knew that the resident on the 12th floor of Building A arranged for his mistress upstairs while his wife was pregnant, making it convenient for dating and cheating. On the same day, the video of John and Amy being caught cheating was spread in the owners' group. John tried to warn. As soon as the message was sent out, he was immediately attacked. The scumbag is still afraid of losing face, dare to do, and not dare to admit it? Brother, you're really amazing. You put your mistress right under your nose. Don't worry, you've become famous. This video has already been spread. John directly quit the group. I didn't exert any effort, but the fermentation of the video continued and eventually even became popular on the internet. Someone even dug up the information of John and Amy. I stayed in a maternity center. I gave my lawyer full authority to handle the divorce. John still refused to divorce and waited downstairs at the maternity center. I told the lawyer to sue directly, without any nonsense. Once John used my husband's identity to have people bring him to the room where I was staying, and he even held the baby. I couldn't stand it anymore and lost my temper since then. Everyone in the maternity center knew I had a husband who was going through a divorce. Most women expressed their understanding. After all, humans are not machines, and being betrayed by your husband while giving birth. How many people can accept such betrayal? But there were still a few well-meaning people who tried to persuade me to forgive him. If a man does something wrong, as long as you give him a chance to correct it, the effect will be very good. Your husband has never been absent. No matter if it's windy or rainy. Aren't you touched at all? I held the child and said calmly, if you love him so much, let him divorce me. Maybe he will be yours after the divorce. That person left with the words, ungrateful. I turned a deaf ear to it and finally gave her a slight smile. On the 20th day of staying in the maternity center, John finally couldn't take it anymore and left. And then my father, whom I hadn't contacted for a long time, called. Are you going to divorce John? Who allowed you to divorce? John is such a good son-in-law. You don't cherish him, and you still learn from others to get a divorce. You don't learn well, just like your mother. I suppressed the urge in my heart. I didn't expect John to be so disgusting. He knew that I hated this father, who almost arranged a ghost marriage for me. Yet he specifically invited him to be a mediator on the second day of my 18th birthday. I heard the news that my father owed money. He used my birth chart to arrange a ghost marriage for a dead old man. Later, my mother's divorce completely ruined this matter. I never thought The person who understood me best and comforted me the most at that time. Now it has become the person who wields a knife at me. Santiago, don't think that you can boss me around just because you've had a few drinks.
What are you? 10.
Every time I thought about John's shameless behavior, I urged the lawyer to act as soon as possible. The day I left the maternity center, I had the nanny I found take care of the baby. Then I took Zoe's martial arts gym people and went back to move things. As soon as I opened the door, the smell of alcohol hit me. The living room was full of piles of empty bottles. I kicked one of them, and the crashing sound woke John up. When he saw me, he lunged at me trying to hug me. I dodged his movement and turned into the master bedroom, but I found that almost all the clothes in the closet had been messed up. Even the straps of the nightgown were broken, and the stockings were torn. Combined with the horrible sight inside, anyone could tell what he and Amy had done here. I looked at John. John, I find you really disgusting. I'm not looking. Everything here is dirty. I don't want it. I left with everyone, and John chased after me, begging me to stay. Sarah, I know nothing I say will help, but we have so many years of relationship. Can you forgive me once? I swear. I will never contact Amy again. I really regret it. I just found it funny. With so many years of relationship, how can you still cheat? Just lie to yourself. Sarah, will never forgive you. Fortunately, I had saved a lot of money over the years, enough to support me until the lawsuit ended. Zoe recommended me a few jobs, but I still preferred photography. Because before I married John, my job was a photographer, and later, in order to cooperate with him to start a company, I touched photography less and less. I tried taking pictures of my daughter to find my feel. As a result, as soon as I posted it on my social platforms, I got many orders. Amy found out where I worked and came directly, her attitude extremely arrogant. Let's talk. I refused to talk to her and blocked her in front of her. I kept you before because I forgot to block you. Not for you to come and disturb me. Amy was instantly stimulated. Do you think you can do whatever you want because you gave birth to a daughter? I'll tell you, I'm 3 months pregnant, and the doctor said I'm definitely having a boy. Amy yelled like crazy. She hasn't been having a good time recently, as the matter of her being a mistress has been exposed. Her parents scolded her, and people at school laughed at her. Her mental state was especially worrying. Sarah, everything you have now is mine. I am the woman who will be with John for the rest of his life. I raised an eyebrow and smiled. If John really cared about you, how could he make you look like this now? If you were his true love, he wouldn't let you get hurt. Amy, you've bet on the wrong person. John doesn't really like you that much. Do you know that he waited for me for 20 days without interruption at the maternity center, where I was staying, in order to beg for my forgiveness? After hearing this, Amy rushed towards me like crazy. I'm going to kill you. The security guard caught her and threw her out. 11. Probably due to Amy's influence, John actually agreed to the divorce. It's just that he wasn't satisfied with the property distribution I listed. After hearing the news from the lawyer, I felt like meeting John. His eyes were bloodshot, and although he was still decently dressed, he looked haggard and was clearly not doing well. John looked at me deeply. Sarah, you don't have to be so cruel. I'm willing to share with you. As long as you agree, we'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau immediately. I looked at him like he was an idiot. Do you think you still have the right to bargain with me? John faced reality. Now that you've cheated and various videos are all over the place, I still haven't exposed the ones I have. And I'm going to keep them as evidence for the lawsuit. If you're not willing, then we have this lawsuit, I don't care. When you cheated, didn't I expect the scene now? If you're willing to cooperate, what if I give you some? You can be greedy, then I have no choice. John's face became more and more ugly. You're so cruel. How will you face your daughter in the future? Does she know that you bully her father like this? I smiled wryly. She won't have a father. I won't let her know about your existence. From the moment you cheated, this outcome was destined. So, you don't have to think too much, don't say such ridiculous things. John, it's you who wronged us, mother and daughter. It's you who personally destroyed our 10-year relationship. We could have lived a good life. It's you. It's you who ruined everything. John covered his face and cried. The phone on the table vibrated. I glanced at it. It was Amy. John didn't answer. He agreed to my request, and I was also willing to give up 1%. I asked the lawyer to redraft the agreement. A month later, I got the divorce certificate. Amy immediately took John to get a marriage certificate. I watched them both like a joke. I sold John's property. I took my daughter and money back to my hometown. My mother had already learned that I was going to get a divorce and didn't say much, silently supporting me. I left my daughter with my mother to raise. The next day, I flew to find an artist team to shoot. A set of photos I took made an 18-line artist popular. Since then, I have gradually gained fame in the circle and established my own personal studio. 3 years later, my daughter can already speak and is well educated by her grandmother. Looking at my daughter in the video, curiously looking around with her eyes open, I decided to take a long vacation for myself. Take my daughter to travel. The second stop was the place where I had lived for 10 years. I pointed to the familiar building outside and told my daughter. My daughter laughed happily. Mom, this thing looks like a ball. I found her comparison cute. Back then, John, with a youthful face, confessed to me under this ball. He said a love sentence in a stumbling way, and I agreed without thinking. Later, we did get along very well, and were very happy because we had the same goal. We started a company, encouraged each other every day, and tried our best. Life got better and better, and John proposed to me. But the man who used to be so nervous because someone flirted with him has changed. After all, I held my daughter's hand and walked along the river. A couple selling sweet potatoes had an argument ahead. I took my daughter and changed direction. Familiar voices and conversations drifted into my ears with the wind. Amy, let go of this. I've spent all day roasting sweet potatoes, and he's finished them all. You'd better take him to your parents, otherwise we'll get a divorce. What are you arguing with the child for? He doesn't know anything. Divorce, you take him and get out. The woman was slapped and cried out. I looked back. Covering my daughter's ears, I left quickly. Look, this is the retribution for betraying sincerity.